My daughter told her friends, he only comes around to feel important. It's honestly embarrassing. I was taking out the trash. One of them giggled, does he know you laugh at him? An hour later, she asked if I was coming to her recital. I didn't reply. My daughter doesn't know I heard her mocking me with her friends. She doesn't know I stood outside the living room door, holding a trash bag, listening to her call me pathetic. She doesn't know how it cracked something open in me. Later that night, she asked me if I was coming to her piano recital. I looked at her, nodded slightly, and didn't go. I sat in the parking lot the entire time, just watching from a distance. I haven't told her what I heard. I don't even know if I ever will. Now I'm just trying to understand how we got here. How a daughter who used to cling to me with sticky fingers and sleepy hugs now barely looks at me. I don't know if this is normal. I don't know if this is what parenting teenagers is supposed to feel like, or if I've already lost her. I wasn't expecting to be a single parent. That sounds so cliché, but it's the truth. When Marcus and I had Claire, we were already on shaky ground, though we didn't want to admit it. We were young, ambitious, he was working his way through medical school, and I was grinding it out at a mid-tier law firm in D.C. We moved to Ashburn when Claire was 6. It was one of those decisions that felt right at the time. The kind you justify by saying, she deserves a better school district, when really you're just looking for some kind of peace. I told myself we'd find it there. Marcus left a year later. It was a Thursday. He came home late. I was folding laundry in the living room, Claire was asleep. He stood in the doorway and just said, I can't do this anymore. No yelling. No accusations. Just that quiet, exhausted honesty that people only reach after all the fighting has been wrung dry. He said he'd call Claire every day. Said he wanted to be present, even if he wasn't physically around. I believed him. For a while, he even stuck to it. There were FaceTime calls, birthday gifts mailed in bubble wrap, and a few weekends a year when he'd fly in and take her hiking or out for pancakes. I never told her why we split. Not really. I didn't want to poison her view of him. I wanted her to form her own opinion. Maybe that was a mistake. By the time she hit 13, the distance had begun. Not the physical kind, she still lived in the same house, still ate the dinners I cooked, still got rides to piano lessons and school. But the emotional space? That was growing by the day. She became quieter, guarded, sarcastic in that teenage way that walks the line between funny and mean. I kept telling myself it was normal. That she'd come back around. She didn't. The day I overheard her was just like any other. It was a Saturday in late March, cold but sunny, with that weird early spring feeling in the air. She had 3 friends over for a sleepover. They were spread out in the living room, watching something on Netflix with the volume too low, talking over it. I had just finished cleaning up the kitchen. I grabbed the full trash bag and headed out to the garage. As I passed the living room, I paused, just for a second, to make sure the dog hadn't knocked over the water bowl again. That's when I heard her voice. My dad? He only comes around to feel important, it's honestly embarrassing. I stopped moving. My hand still held the drawstring of the trash bag. The girls giggled. One of them, I think it was Ruby, said, does he know you laugh at him? Claire's laugh wasn't cruel. It was worse. It was casual. Like this wasn't the first time she'd said something like that. Like it wasn't even a big deal. She kept talking. She said he tried too hard. That he still called her kiddo like she was 7. That he brought her coffee and spelled her name wrong. That everything he did was just cringe. They laughed again. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. My body just shut down. I didn't even process how much time passed before I dropped the trash in the bin and walked back inside. The silence felt different after that. Like something had been exposed. An hour later, she knocked on my door. She was scrolling through her phone, eyes half glazed the way teenagers always seem to be. Hey, Are you coming to my recital next week? She asked, not looking up. I didn't answer. Not really. I think I nodded. Maybe I mumbled. I honestly don't remember. I just remember thinking, you don't get to ask me that after what I just heard. But I didn't say that. I never say what I actually feel with her anymore. It's like walking on eggshells, except the floor is made of glass and the eggshells are memories of who she used to be. I didn't go to the recital. Well, I did. I drove there. I parked in the lot behind the auditorium. I watched parents walk in, holding flowers and talking quietly, looking around for familiar faces. Some of them smiled nervously, like it was their performance, not their kids. I saw Marcus arrive. He was dressed up, more than usual. Jacket, no tie. He had a small bouquet of tulips. Claire met him at the door. She hugged him. She smiled. A real smile. One I hadn't seen in years. The kind that made her eyes crinkle at the edges. She looked happy. And I sat there in my car, hands clenched around the steering wheel, trying not to feel like I was falling. I stayed for almost an hour. Then I drove to the diner on Route 7. The one with the sticky booths and chipped mugs. I sat in the corner and ordered a black coffee. I didn't even drink it. Just stared at it, watching the steam curl and vanish. The waitress, Charlene, I think, asked if I was waiting for someone. I said no. The following week, Claire didn't ask me why I hadn't come. She just told me how it went. Said the performance was great. That people complimented her. That her dad cried. She laughed a little when she said it. He gets emotional at literally everything. I wanted to ask, do you mock him with your college friends too? But I didn't. Instead, I said, sounds like you did great. She nodded. Yeah, I think I did. And that was it. I started seeing a therapist after that. I told her everything. Not just about the recital, or the trash bag, or the silence growing between me and my daughter. I told her about the guilt. The resentment. The endless loop of parenting where you pour everything in and wonder if they'll even remember you did. Dr. Monroe, my therapist, didn't try to make it better. She just listened. She's still forming her understanding of the world, she said. And of you. That's going to take years. But what if she never sees it? I asked. Then you did your job anyway, she replied. That answer didn't feel satisfying. But it felt true. Claire is 17 now. She's applying to colleges. She still doesn't say much. But sometimes, she'll leave the house in something I bought her without asking. Or she'll mention a dinner I made 3 weeks ago and say, that was actually really good. Tiny crumbs. Little signs that maybe I haven't completely lost her. I haven't brought up what I heard. Not yet. Some days, I want to scream it at her. Other days, I just want her to hug me like she used to when she was small. The college letters started coming in early. Most were just acknowledgments, thank you for applying, we look forward to reviewing your materials. Then came a few acceptances. Some rejections. She didn't react much to either. She pinned a few envelopes to the corkboard in her room. One afternoon, I walked past her door and noticed that she had hung up her University of Virginia letter with a small gold pushpin. Nothing flashy, just a quiet way of saying, this is the one. I didn't say anything about it. Not right away. I waited until she brought it up at dinner. I think I'm gonna go with UVA, she said, pushing salad around on her plate. They've got a solid psych program and Ruby's thinking of going too. Sounds like a good fit, I replied. She nodded. Then added, almost like it was an afterthought, Dad said he'd help with tuition. There it was again, his name, like a shadow in every decision now. I smiled anyway, or at least tried to. That's great. I'm proud of you. She didn't say thanks. She rarely does anymore. That night, I stayed up late scrolling through old photos. There was one of her at 7, wearing a cardboard crown from a birthday party. She had cake frosting on her chin and one of her tiny hands in mine. She looked so sure of me. Like I was her whole world. I stared at it for almost an hour before putting my phone down and going to bed. We had one big fight that summer. Just one. But it stayed with me. It was over something small, her curfew. She wanted to stay out until 1 a.m. on a weeknight to go to some bonfire with Ruby and her boyfriend. I said no. She rolled her eyes, muttered something under her breath. What was that? I asked. She looked up at me, eyes hard. Nothing. Just, why do you care, anyway? You don't even know what I do anymore. I felt something in my chest twist. I care because I'm still your mother, I said, my voice sharper than I intended. Yeah, she said, but you act like this house is a hotel. You just do your own thing and expect me to show up when it's convenient for you. That was the moment I broke. I have given everything to you, I said, low and cold. Every piece of myself. Every night I stayed up with you when you were sick. Every morning I drove you to school. Every damn dinner I made after a 10-hour workday. And now you think I'm a hotel? Her mouth opened slightly, then closed again. We didn't speak for 2 days after that. The silence between us was louder than any screaming match we could have had. Later that week, she left a note on the kitchen table. It was short. Just said, sorry about before. I didn't mean it. I was just mad. I didn't confront her about it. I just placed it in the drawer where I kept the warranties and tax forms. I couldn't throw it away. Sometimes we get these tiny offerings from our kids, like they're saying, I still love you, I just don't know how to say it the way I used to. Move-in day at UVA came fast. She packed light. Said she didn't want to bring too much sentimental junk. She didn't ask me to come with her. She said Ruby's parents were taking them, and Marcus would meet them there. I tried not to let it show, but she must have picked up on it. You don't have to make this a thing, she said, slipping on her sneakers. It's just. I thought it would be easier this way. Easier for who? I asked. She didn't answer. The morning she left, she gave me a hug. It was brief, stiff, but it was more than I expected. She didn't look me in the eyes. I'll call you, she said. I nodded. Drive safe. And then she was gone. The house felt like a tomb that day. Too quiet. Too clean. I wandered from room to room like I was waiting for someone to come home. I ended up sitting on her bed, staring at the faint indent where her pillow used to be. I wanted to cry, but nothing came out. Instead, I got up, cleaned the kitchen, vacuumed the hallway, and eventually fell asleep on the couch with the TV on. She didn't call for 4 days. When she did, it was to ask if I could email her insurance card. She sounded tired but content. I asked how things were going. She said fine. Said the dining hall food wasn't as bad as people said. We talked for 7 minutes. Then she had to go. I didn't sleep that night. I just lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering if this was just the way life goes, raising someone who becomes a stranger, who maybe doesn't need you anymore. Who maybe never did. A week later, she texted me a picture. It was her and a boy, sitting on the grass. They were holding iced coffee. She captioned it, "Don't laugh, he calls me kiddo." I stared at the message for a long time. I didn't laugh. I didn't cry either. But I felt something loosen in my chest. Just a little. Maybe, just maybe, she remembers more than I think. After that text, we settled into a kind of rhythm. She'd send me the occasional message, usually about practical things. A login she forgot. Where to find a scanned copy of her immunization records. One time it was a frantic string of texts about laundry shrinking her favorite hoodie. I'd always reply quickly, never too long, never too short. Trying to be useful without hovering. I didn't want to be overbearing. I didn't want to be invisible either. There was a weird stretch in October where she went silent for almost 2 weeks. No texts. No calls. Nothing. I debated calling her a dozen times but kept telling myself she was busy. That this was what independence looked like. That if I reached out too much, she'd pull further away. But I'll be honest, every day without hearing from her felt like a slow unraveling. Then, on a Sunday night, my phone buzzed. Just one sentence: "Do you still make that baked ziti with the spinach and ricotta?" No context. No greeting. Just that. I stared at it for a few minutes before responding, "I do." "Want the recipe?" She sent back, "No. Just, was thinking about it." That was it. But it was enough to carry me for days. Thanksgiving break was the next big test. She came home for 5 days. I cleaned the whole house before she arrived, even the closets she never touched. I stocked the fridge with her favorites. Even bought the oat milk creamer she liked for her coffee. She arrived with a giant duffel bag, earbuds in, hoodie up. "Hey," she said, stepping inside. I wanted to hug her, but I waited. She pulled out one earbud, glanced around the kitchen. "Smells good in here." "I made the ziti," I said. She didn't smile, but she gave me a quiet, cool. We didn't talk much that night. She retreated to her room pretty quickly. I didn't push. But the next morning, she sat down at the counter and said, "Do we still have that old kettle? The one that whistles?" I pulled it out of the cabinet and set it on the stove. She made tea and just stayed there. We didn't talk about school, or her new boyfriend, if that's what he was, or the old fight we'd had over curfew. We didn't talk about much of anything. But we sat. We drank tea. And in that silence, I felt something I hadn't in months. Presence. Later that day, she wandered into the garage where I was putting away boxes of fall decorations. I heard her pick something up, a frame. I turned around and saw her holding a photo of us from years ago. She was maybe 9. We were at the National Zoo. I had my arm around her shoulders and she had cotton candy in her hand, her mouth wide in a laugh. "God, my teeth were a mess," she muttered. "You were perfect," I said. She didn't respond, just looked at the picture for a while, then put it down carefully. She left the garage without saying anything else. But I stayed there long after, holding the memory like something fragile. The rest of her visit was mostly quiet. No big heart-to-hearts. No breakthroughs. But small moments. She sat with me during a rerun of The Good Wife, which she used to roll her eyes at. She helped chop onions for the stuffing on Thanksgiving morning, even though she didn't eat much of it. She asked where I got the new dish towels. "I like them," she said. "They're kind of cozy?" That made me smile, though I kept it small. She left Sunday evening, hugging me a little tighter than she had when she'd arrived. She didn't say she'd miss me. But she texted that night when she got back to campus. "Made it. Thanks for everything. Love you." That was the first love you I'd gotten in a long time that didn't feel like an afterthought. Winter was harder. She got sick in December, strep throat, some kind of sinus infection too. She texted me one morning, "I feel like heck. Why didn't I appreciate you when I was younger?" I almost dropped my phone when I read it. We had a short call that day. I gave her tips. Told her which over-the-counter stuff actually worked. She sniffled and groaned, joked that she wished she could teleport home for a bowl of my soup. That night, I overnighted her a care package with soup mix, herbal teas, cough drops, and fuzzy socks. I added a note that said, "You don't have to teleport. You just have to call." She didn't reply to that part. But 2 days later she texted, "Soup was amazing. You win." Small. But it was something. Her spring break plans didn't include home. She was going to North Carolina with Ruby and 2 other friends. They'd rented a cabin. I tried not to show my disappointment. I said all the right things. Sounds fun. You deserve a break. Be safe. The night before they left, she FaceTimed me. Totally unexpected. I forgot how annoying Ruby gets when she packs, she said, sitting on the edge of her dorm bed, hair pulled into a messy bun. I laughed. Some things don't change. We talked for a while. 30 minutes, maybe more. She told me about a psych professor she really liked. A book she was reading for fun. She even asked how I was doing. It wasn't much. But it felt like progress. After the call ended, I sat in my kitchen, still holding the warm mug I'd made before she called. I realized something then, that parenting isn't just about doing the right things when they're little. It's about staying steady when they drift. It's about being the place they come back to when they finally look over their shoulder. Sometimes, you have to let them leave to make space for them to return. And when they do, even in fragments, even in texts or photo captions or surprise FaceTimes, you welcome them with open arms. Because even if they never say it out loud, they remember. They always remember. Spring turned to summer, and I didn't expect much from Claire. She had a job lined up on campus, a research assistant position that paid next to nothing but looked good on paper. She wasn't coming home. At least, that's what she said in April. In early June, she texted. "Hey, is it okay if I come stay for a few weeks? Just need a break. Everything's a bit much." I waited a couple hours before replying. Not to be petty, but because I'd learned something important that year, I don't always have to be immediately available just to prove my love. That's how I'd burned myself out before. I wrote back simply, "Of course. Let me know what day you're arriving." No fuss. No gushing. Just open arms. That was the new me. She came home on a Tuesday, sunburned and tired, dragging a beat-up suitcase behind her. She didn't look like the same girl who'd rolled her eyes at me over cereal boxes and curfews. Her edges had softened. Just a little. "You didn't have to make the guest room," she said, stepping in. "I can take my old room." I donated the bed, I told her. Made space. She blinked, caught off guard. I wasn't being cruel, just honest. She'd left, I'd adjusted. I hadn't kept a shrine. It was the first sign that things had changed. Not just for her, but for me too. 2 days after she arrived, she walked into the kitchen and handed me her phone. "I got a weird message from Dad," she said. I read it. Marcus was asking her to visit him and his new fiancée in Boston. He mentioned family time and rebuilding the bond. Claire scoffed. "He thinks brunch and boat rides make up for everything." I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. She was seeing it for herself now. Later that night, while we were watching TV, she looked over at me and said, "You were the one who stayed. I used to think that made you boring. But now I get it." It hit me harder than I expected. I didn't respond. I just let her sit with that truth. The moment of satisfying revenge came unexpectedly. It was a Saturday morning. Claire had taken over my dining room table with grad school applications. I was making coffee when she said, "Can you read over this personal statement?" I nodded and took the pages from her. Her essay was strong, honest, vulnerable. She wrote about growing up with divorced parents. About the quiet strength of the parent who stayed. About the complexity of love that doesn't always get a spotlight. She didn't name me. But I was all over those pages. Then I saw it. Near the end, I spent years trying to impress the parent who showed up once a month, while ignoring the one who showed up every single day. It took me too long to realize who the real parent was. But now I know. And I carry her with me in everything I do. My throat closed. I set the paper down, cleared my throat, and said, "It's good. Really good." She nodded, looking a little nervous. Later that night, I went to my room, closed the door, and cried quietly into my pillow. The real revenge, the one that made it all worthwhile, came when Marcus emailed me out of the blue. He wanted to coordinate a graduation celebration for Claire the following year. She mentioned she's leaning towards staying with you that week, he wrote. I thought we could do a joint dinner or something. I've reserved a private room at this new seafood place. I stared at the message for a long time. Then, with a calmness I couldn't have summoned a year ago, I wrote back, Claire already asked me to plan something here at the house. She wanted it to be just close friends and family. I'll let you know what day she decides to see you. Short. Polite. Final. He responded within minutes. Some vague sentence about being disappointed but understanding. I didn't even reply. Because the truth was, I had already won. Not by manipulating her. Not by turning her against him. But by staying steady. By never abandoning her. And by reclaiming myself in the process. The party was beautiful. Claire wore a light blue dress, her hair curled at the ends. She laughed with her friends, hugged her professors, toasted with sparkling cider under strings of backyard lights. When it was my turn to speak, I didn't prepare a long speech. I just looked at her and said, "You've always been my greatest teacher." She blinked fast, trying not to cry. After everyone left, she sat beside me on the porch. "I was awful to you," she said, staring into the dark. I didn't argue. I didn't comfort her. "You were a teenager," I said. "You were finding yourself. I knew that. I just hoped you'd eventually find your way back." She looked at me then, really looked. I did. And that was the moment. The quiet, powerful moment of full circle justice. No screaming. No slamming doors. Just the truth sitting between us like a shared memory. Marcus texted her the next day, "Wish I could have been there." She replied, "Maybe next time." She didn't elaborate. She didn't send him pictures. She didn't even tell me she texted him, Ruby did. Because Claire had started talking differently about me when I wasn't around. She told us, Ruby had said with a grin, that you're the strongest person she knows. Said if she ever becomes a mom, she hopes she's like you. That was my revenge. Not cruel. Not loud. Just the slow, undeniable truth of who I was. And the fact that she finally saw it.